Okay, I'm Al Jolly. I'm an architect in Spartanburg, have been for 50 years. And in the late 80s, I was involved in the renovation of the church, in particular in the replacement of the organ and the renovation of the chancel. Briefly, when the organ was bought and decided it would be installed, it was obvious that we did not have in the balcony enough flat space to put the organ in, and so we completely ripped out the whole balcony, made it flat, and got ready for the organ. In the meantime, the church was in need of a thorough cleaning. It was in need of new lighting, which Mr. Montgomery Sr. provided for us, and we needed to fix the chancel. If you were a member at that point in time, or before, you remember that the choir was originally here on the left side of the chancel. There were 3 rows of choir. And on the right side of the chancel, there was a small indentation. Well, it wasn't small. It was an indentation in the floor, and the console for the organ sat down below the, halfway down below the floor level. And of course, the altar and the reredos were, as you see them, the altar wasn't, the reredos was in place as you see it today. So part and parcel of the renovation was to completely refloor the chancel and fix the area where the organ console actually sat. So that was done, and the congregation was very mixed about how to handle the altar. At that point in time, the Anglican and Episcopal communions were considering not having the priest with his back to the congregation, but rather pulling all the altars out so that the priest could be behind the altar facing the congregation. This brought up quite a problem with the Church of the Advent. There was a lot of opposition to doing that. So in order to avoid any more confrontation with the congregation, it was decided that the altar would be placed as it had always been, directly against the reredos. And so we did it. However, knowing that there was a movement afoot to pull the altars out, I went ahead and planned so that we could do that at a later date with minimal disruption. And in fact, Clay Turner came and joined us, I believe, in 1990 or in that neighborhood, and Clay was a big proponent of having the altar forward and being able to look at the congregation while he was carrying on the Eucharist. And so, about 1991, I think, we physically picked the altar up, disconnected it from the reredos, made some structural and physical and alterations to it, so that what you see today is what we did then. In the process of doing that, we made certain that all of this could be reversed. So if in fact the time came in the future where this was not wanted to be, it's merely a function of picking up the altar and sliding it back into place where it once was. In or around 1983, the congregation decided that we would have to buy a new organ. And in the process of doing so, a search committee was put into play, and a lot of organs were observed throughout America. And we settled in about 1984, we settled on the Flintrop Company, which is an organ builder of long standing. In fact, the parent company to Flintrop actually built the organs that Mozart played on. But we settled on Flintrop, and it took several years to get the contract underway, which was actually good for the church because during the time that we were delayed, the guilder to dollar ratio went to the highest it's ever been for $1, and we fundamentally bought the organ at a 3-to-1 discount, which was, of course, a good thing. It's probably the only reason we actually have this instrument is because it was very expensive then and now, but we managed to get it at a third of the cost. That said, in 1986, the contract to build the organ was finalized. It was physically constructed in 1988, and in 1989, it was installed where you see it. As I mentioned before, the entire balcony had to be removed. One of the arches had to be taken out because the organ comes forward beyond where the last arch would have been. And other things, we re-air conditioned the church. That's why these two vents are here. Tried to blend all that in. And as I said, in 1989, a fellow by the name of Hans Steketee, I hope I haven't butchered his name, was the actual builder of this organ and came over himself and spent almost 3 months putting it together, building it back together. So I believe in early 1990, the organ was dedicated, and it's been there ever since. Something you might not know about this organ, and one of the reasons we wanted it, is that this organ is what's called a tracker organ. In real pipe organs that have pipes that actually sound, there are two mechanisms to make the pipes blow. One is a tracker, which is a literal wooden link that goes from the keyboard up to each and every pipe that's in the organ. The other is an electromechanical device where when you press on the key, you're pressing a switch, an electric signal follows a wire and opens a valve under each pipe. The electrical organs are very quick in response. That is, when you press the key, the pipe blows. But the tracker organs have what the organ people call shift, which you press the key and then it blows. So you hit it and then it blows. And you have to learn how to physically play an organ like this, because when you press the key, it's going to be a millisecond or two before you actually hear any sound. But it is a magnificent instrument. When we bought this instrument, it was probably one of maybe 30 in the United States. It's now one of probably 200 in the United States. It's been a very popular type of instrument, and these people that built this were pretty much the world-class authority on organs.